Hi there, I'm Sean, and this is Sean Turns Up the Volume. I won't turn up the volume too much on you today so I don't blast out your speakers. Actually, I probably speak relatively quietly. Um, so, what I wanted to talk about today is to do another video on when the left goes too far. And the topic that I picked today is that the left has gone too far in their like radical siding with basically criminals in society. The left has become basically the party of criminal advocacy. When somebody, so long as it's not like a straight white man, if it's anybody else that commits a crime, then they seem to have all the compassion in the world. Also if it is a liberal, radical white person, then they will too. Because if it's a white Antifa person, they will have all the compassion in the world. But they have become very overtly the party that views laws, conventional, traditional laws, as being oppressive. That laws against drug use and drug dealing are really obvious ones, and I think there's people on both sides of the aisle that can see the war on drugs has not been effective, to say the least, and yet at the same time, even things like theft, stealing, property crimes, things like that have been super minimized by the left. This is part of, again, the Marxism that aim to abolish private property. So things like the BLM burning down buildings. Essentially, you hear arguments like, how can you put property ahead of human life and things like that? It's just property. Insurance will pay for it. If somebody's going to mug you, just give them your wallet, give them whatever you want. It's not worth endangering yourself. Especially, it's not worth endangering them, right? Because they don't want their constituents to get shot, and if you defend yourself. So you see this through the soft on crime policies, the rotating door of the criminal justice system. You see this in people having rap sheets, from multiple to dozens to hundreds of crimes that they've been charged with, multiple convictions. So many murders, so many crimes are being committed by a relatively small portion of society. Sometimes it's a small handful of people committing like hundreds of crimes in an area. They're committing a lot of the murders, a lot of the thefts and things like that, and they just get let back out. Places like California and New York having these policies where the felony charge for theft is increased by a certain dollar amount to, like, I think like maybe it's like $1,000 or something. This was in the news in the past, I don't know, year or two. And so then the thefts go way up because the criminals know that they will basically not be charged, not get in trouble for their theft, and then you just go into the store, grab a bunch of things. The security guards, the people working there, just watch as they leave with the stuff, and they're just getting away with it. And then the left complains that there are food deserts, that businesses, which of course can't be profitable, have to leave areas with high crime. And so the left has this messaging of, well, crime is okay. You deserve it, especially if you're in some minority group. They push the view that all minorities are oppressed, that our culture is a toxic, evil, white, racist culture, that every aspect of our culture is bad and evil and needs to be abolished and changed, and that all those aspects of culture are oppressing everybody else. And so because they are oppressed, therefore they can get what's theirs. Therefore they make excuses when if the black guy with the rap sheet murders the Ukrainian white girl, well, all kinds of excuses in the world for that. The same kind of grace is not extended to, I don't know, an innocent man who's just debating people in front of his wife and kids who gets murdered, right? You see the different response there. Let's keep talking about it because it is so crazy. Because the left is so out to lunch. They have, I don't know, they're so out to lunch. They've left the picnic table behind. They're in orbit around the planet or something. Um, but well, the left has made themselves the party of criminals. They don't want criminal justice. When they talk about social justice, what they mean is critical social justice, as in critical theory, as in Marxist Frankfurt School critical theory, in which what is just is getting rid of all the aspects of our civilization and transforming it all into things that are socialist, or the socialists have the answers to the questions. And part of what that means is, well, traditional things like don't steal, don't rob, don't rape, and don't murder, to the left are old evil ideas from white men, and they need to change that. And putting people in prison and punishing them for those crimes, or giving them the death penalty for those crimes, those are old, bad, outdated, oppressive sorts of ideas. And instead, the criminals are the victims of society, and the actual victims of society are, well, I mean, too bad, so sad for them, according to the left. They just kind of minimize the victims, at least, if not say, well, the victim in some way deserved it, if nothing more than that they were part of the oppressive or privileged class of society. So this is like the left is way out there here. And again, going to that, seeing it from the Marxist lens, they're out there because, again, going back to the Frankfurt School, they see the opportunity of criminals, of the criminal inclined, of the criminal class of society, as there's an opportunity there to cater to them as, like, they're inclined to see themselves as the oppressed, and they're inclined, they could be used towards revolutionary purposes. They serve the purposes of creating anarchy. They do crimes, and then the state has to get stronger and clamp down on it because people call for law and order. And so it's useful if you want an all-powerful socialist state to come about, to have lots of crime and anarchy going on, because then at some point, if the socialists can get their way, they can have their bloody revolt and flip things on its head, and then have all kinds of authoritarian rule to deal with this. Of course, the people who are the criminal anarchist part of that society either become the brown shirt enforcers. They might become the police and the investigators, right? If they're problematic, then they just get like dealt with. But they might be useful to the cause of, arresting, torturing, killing, sending off to gulags the normal people who aren't actually criminals, but they're political. But they commit thought crimes, politically not aligned, right? I've been reading the book The Gulag Archipelago. I'd heard Jordan Peterson mention it so much. I'm only a little ways into it. It's a really tough read because it's based on real history from the Soviet Union, and you read about the lies, the tortures, how their secret police would just have quotas to arrest people, would just arrest people for any old thing, would charge them with some BS nonsense thing, nab up families, friends, neighbors, anybody associated with them as well, and then torture them for days. You wouldn't be able to sleep, not eat, have to stand, different things like that. And all to get fake confessions, all just to confess to some fake thing. And then they'd slam them with often 10 years in prison or 10 years off to the gulag. These tenors were their sentences. And so this is how the socialist Soviet state was dealing dealing with their political opponents and anybody who wasn't in line. And of course, and they also dealt with it to their own people too, because nobody was safe from that, because that's what happens in a Marxist state. It eats its own too. So going back, like, the reason for why they are soft on crime is ideological. They view criminals as being oppressed by our society, that the oppressed need to be free, that those of us who pay taxes, obey laws, live peaceful, normal lives, that we're the ones with the problem because we have our standards, that we're the ones that need to be overthrown, and that the criminals need to be in charge. Not that they really, of course, not that they really want the criminals in charge. The criminals just serve the purpose of destabilizing things enough to be doing their part. Things like Antifa doing their part in order to get the revolution going, and serve the purposes of giving the state at some point the reason to come down with their harsh response. You see this playing out even now. You've got, from the rampant crime to the riots and violent protests and things going on against ICE, and then Trump, the federal government, is put in this position where it's this no-win, at least for the left, or for the right. Like, to allow them to continue to do this and to not uphold our laws would certainly not be, like, those of us on the right wouldn't like to see that from our politicians. We want them to be applying the law to everyone as they should, in ways that Obama and Biden were not. And so if they don't, then they have a political problem there. And of course, the left will keep doing what the left's doing anyway. And if they do crack down on it, from cracking down on the illegal immigration to cracking down on the violent protests going on, the people who are trying to block the feds from doing their jobs, then that gives the left more ammunition for their narrative of the fascism. Whereas this is, they want it to be that way, though, right? It's like a win either way for them. Either they get to push things even farther and commit more lawlessness, and we don't do anything, or on our side, or they push us and our side does do something about it, and they go, oh, look, they're doing something about it, look how fascist they are. On their side, at least the politicians, the movers and the shakers who actually want the total authoritarian socialist control of the state, they actually would salivate at it. We do have the problem that the government is incredibly big, that like the federal government has only gotten bigger and bigger, and there's more and more laws and more surveillance and things like that. It's just like, and both parties have taken us in that direction, which is a problem. Then the left goes, well, when the right uses that power, they're fascist, but when they do it under Biden and Obama, they're fine with it. And when those admins were actively protecting criminals, not prosecuting and encouraging illegal immigration, I guess they were fine with that. Well, that too. It's hard to keep track of all the layers of hypocrisy and double standards here. I think I've said enough on this topic, just to convey the point that this is just in the long list of ways that the left has gone too far, siding with criminals, siding with them en masse, making this like basically a demographic that they want to vote for and support and sympathizing with. They've gone too far. Like, they don't, as a party, as an ideology, of course there's individuals that would disagree with this, but as an ideological group, they have gone ridiculously out to lunch here. They are on the side of evil, and they want more evil, and so we have to stand against that. And if they're not, if they want to be viable as a political party, and to be a viable party existing in this country, to be reasonable again, and to be pro like our own Americans and law-abiding citizens, then I think they need to pull way back, come way back towards the center on this stuff, and start siding with actual victims of crimes, of siding with harsh and appropriate penalties for things, and that violent people especially should not be being let out quickly or easily or anything like that. And that yeah, the something needs something needs to be done, because letting people off over and over and over again is just sending one message: you can commit crimes and nothing's going to be done about it, because there's plenty of people out there for whom getting arrested by the police and going to jail even for a short time, like, they don't care, they're going to do it again anyway, and it's like a slap on the wrist for them. For law-abiding people like you and me, if you watching this are, the idea of going to jail is very unpleasant, and we don't want to be doing bad things anyway, and we want to make this like a better place and not a worse place. And so, the thought of punishments and stuff just is even more fuel to like not want to break the law, though I wouldn't want it to anyway. But there are people out there who don't give a crap, and will break laws anyway and need to be held to account. And there's people out there who, if they knew that the law was stronger, if they knew that the punishment was worse, that it could be something that decreases their likelihood to do it. Of course, there's always going to be people who still do anyway, because unless you lock down every single person in the country, you're going to have people who commit crimes. There are inevitabilities there. It's just part of human life and freedom. But there's people who do enjoy committing crimes. There's people who enjoy doing evil. There's people who enjoy victimizing other people and will do it anyway. And they need to be stopped. They need to be dealt with. Society needs to deal with them, and deal with them harshly, because victims matter more. The rest of us who are trying to obey the laws and live a good, peaceful life matter more. Our lives matter more. Our lives need to be held up, and their lives need to be held to account. So those are my thoughts on where the left has gone too far in concern, or in regard to criminal justice stuff. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.